Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why sometimes you and your friend just click, and other times it feels like you are speaking different languages, even when you are both trying your best? Well, this new study dives into what is happening in our brains during social interactions, and how that connects to how well we understand each other, especially when social anxiety is in the picture. So imagine this, you are hanging out with your best friend, and you are having a great conversation. Now, what if you could actually see that same conversation from your friend's eyes while your brain is being scanned? That is pretty much what the researchers in this study did. They had student friends chat for about 20 minutes, and they recorded what each person saw using special glasses. Then they brought them back into a scanner and had them watch clips of that exact same conversation. But here is the cool part, they watched it from two different viewpoints. First, they watched clips from their own perspective, just like they originally experienced it. Think of it like reliving a memory as you lived it. This is where they looked at their own view, their own interaction. Then they watched the exact same conversation clips, but this time from their friend's perspective. So they saw themselves talking to their friend as if they were their friend watching them. This is a super new way to look at things because it is not usually how we experience conversation. While they were watching these clips in the scanner, the researchers measured their brain activity. They were specifically looking at something called interbrain neural similarity. Now, what does that mean in plain English? It is basically a way to see how similar the brain activity is between two people when they are looking at the same thing. Usually, researchers do this by showing everyone the exact same movie. But here, they could compare brain activity when people saw identical clips, when they saw clips from their own perspective, and when they saw clips from their friend's perspective. After watching each little clip, the participants also rated how they were feeling, how positive or negative they felt. This is important because it gives us a measure of affective similarity, how similar their emotional experiences were. They also measured how much social anxiety each person usually experiences. We know social anxiety can make social interactions tricky, so they wanted to see if that played a role. So what did they find? It turns out that when friends watched the conversation clips from their own perspective, meaning they were reliving the interaction as they originally experienced it, if they reported feeling more similar emotions during those moments, their brains were also more in sync. That is right, greater emotional similarity led to greater brain similarity when they were seeing things from their own point of view. It suggests that when we're on the same emotional page, our brains are also working in a similar way. But here is where it gets really interesting, especially when looking through the friend's perspective. When participants watched the clips from their friend's viewpoint, the game changed, particularly for people with social anxiety. For those with lower social anxiety, more emotional similarity still meant more brain sync. They were just more in tune with their friend. However, for those with higher social anxiety, they found something different. When they experienced less emotional similarity with their friend, their brains were actually more in sync. It's like when things were emotionally dissonant, they were working harder to get on the same wavelength, perhaps trying to figure out what their friend was feeling. They also looked at specific brain regions. They found that in a part of the brain called the temporoparietal junction, or TPJ, which is usually involved in understanding what other people are thinking, higher social anxiety was linked to less brain sync when viewing the interaction from the friend's perspective. This could mean that for those with higher social anxiety, stepping into their friend's shoes during a past interaction makes it harder for their brains to synchronize, at least in this specific area. Now, it is important to remember this is still early research. They had a relatively small group of participants, and most of them were college students and white. So, we need to be careful about saying these findings apply to everyone everywhere. Also, they always had people watch their own perspective first, then their friends. It is possible that order might have influenced things a little. They also mentioned that watching yourself in the clips could lead to more self-focused thinking, which is something that can be a big part of social anxiety. What does this all really mean? This study highlights how important it is to study social interactions in a natural, real-world way, not just by showing people pre-made videos in a lab. When we're actually living through something with someone, our brains are working together in unique ways, especially when our emotions are aligned. It also shows that for people struggling with social anxiety, their brain's response to understanding social interactions, especially when trying to see things from another's perspective, can be quite different. It suggests that for them, moments of emotional mismatch might actually trigger more neural engagement. Perhaps an attempt to bridge that gap. Whereas for others, emotional similarity is the key to brain synchronization. Going forward, researchers might want to look more closely at how our emotions are processed in the brain and how that connects to our ability to understand each other. And for people with social anxiety, understanding these subtle brain patterns could lead to better ways to help them navigate those tricky social situations. This research is a fantastic step towards understanding the complex dance of brains in social connection. What do you think about these findings? Does it make sense that our brains sync up when our emotions do? And how do you think social anxiety might change that? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this fascinating, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to Rubin's Mind Lab for more explorations into the incredible world of psychology, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into the human mind. Thanks for watching.